What it do, y'all, and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm very excited to bring you guys my next video in Swagmas, which today's video is going to be focusing on the last push of palettes that I need to review for this year. Now, these should be the last 14 palettes you guys have seen featured on my channel, and that is quite a range of months that these were featured, but they have all been featured at one point or another on my channel. And so I finally have enough palettes to do this wrap up and enough thoughts on each palette to do my wrap up. And then of course, a couple of days, maybe a week or two, I will go ahead and do my top 10 palettes of 2022. So do stay tuned for that. It is coming. I just really needed to push through and get my opinions on all of these before I could actually do that video with a full good conscience. But with that said, if you're interested in hearing about these 14 palettes, then let's get into it.
Santa Claus the black man. Santa Claus the black man, and his handsome like my daddy too. Santa Claus the black man. Santa Claus the black man, and I found out that's why I'm telling you.
Alrighty, so I did film this eye look and this whole face in general, and this video, I don't know what's going to be coming up first, but when it is available, I will have it linked down below for you all. And yeah, I will also go ahead and have all of these items listed and linked if they are still available. Some of them are limited edition, so I don't know if I can find them, but if I can, I will go ahead and link them for you all. I am just gonna go based on what is on top of the pile. It is no rhyme or reason now, and then of course, as I typically do, I'm gonna rank these from 14 to 1 being my favorite palette of this bunch, as I always do in my last couple of ranking videos. So let's just dive on in. I don't want to talk too long. So first two on the top are actually two quads from Caladios Cosmetics. Now this first quad is from their lace collection, and this was the more neutral brown tone quad. I don't remember the name. I believe it might actually be Cold Smoke. I love this quad. I think this is a beautiful, perfect, everyday neutral quad for somebody of my complexion. I can get away with actually wearing all three mattes, although these two are the only two that I really need. And this shimmer is actually quite pigmented and metallic. I would say it's not like one of those sheer type textured metallics. It is quite thick, so think it's going to definitely be opaque, but I do enjoy this quad. I think it is fantastic quality. I think the one critique that a lot of people had, me included, was the fact that the name was not on this palette, but of course they did go ahead and fix that when they did their second launch of quads. This one specifically is named the Flower Haze, and I love this one because this once again stuck with the more neutral aesthetic, but still gave me purples. I do love purples. It was actually the first color of eyeshadow that I picked up when I was in high school, and ever since I still have just had a soft spot for purples nonetheless. This is a really beautiful quad too. I really love the tone and the color of this shimmer. Once again, very similar formulation to the other one where it is more of an opaque metallic. You're not going to get that sheer kind of finish at all, in my opinion, with this. I do like all of the mattes. Once again, though, I feel like you only need these two. This lighter matte of both of the quads, I feel like are not really necessary for somebody of my complexion, but these are made for a variety of complexions, so it's all good. I don't mind. I can still get use out of it. I can use it as a brow bone highlight for the off chance that I actually want to do that, or you can just use it to really blend out your crease in the event that you like to do a multi-crease look. So yeah, really happy with both of these palettes. I would recommend them, although I do know that some people are no longer supporting Caladios because of their lack of inclusion with PR and some of their campaigns, but I really felt like I could support them in that purchase, and I'm very happy that I made that particular purchase among with the other products that I picked up during that time. Sticking with quads, let's go ahead and go to Give Beauty. So in this one, this is called Rich Girl, and this once again if I can open her, is another really beautiful brownie quad. Now in this one, I think I can get a good amount of use out of all of these shadows, although I don't really understand the purpose of this one. This one is like a satin. I don't like satins. I don't understand satins. I find no purpose in them. So I really only use these two mattes in my crease. I put this on my lid and I'm happy. You can use this. I'm sure people do, but like it makes absolutely no sense to me. And just like other people have mentioned, you can pop the actual quad out. So it should be refillable, although I don't think they have ever released the refills just yet. So very happy with this quad. I think the quality is really nice. And I would say that this metallic is a little bit more multi-use. You're not going to get as thick of an opacity unless you're really packing it on, compared specifically with that Caladios. But that just comes to show, you know, independently owned makeup and more, you know, mainstream makeup, you're always going to get that disparity in the formulas. Honestly, you really don't see a lot of mainstream brands coming out with formulas like these independently owned brands. Another independently owned brand that I tried for the first time is Sugar Drizzle. I was really excited for this Halloween palette, and this is their Trick Rawr Treat palette. Now this is a 6-pan, and I must say, this 6-pan is beautiful. I really love the shimmery tones. You get like a really pretty duochrome. I would say this is more of a multi-chrome. You get another thick kind of opaque metallic, and you get 3 mattes. Now I've said thick opaque metallic for like 2 of these or 3 of these 4 palettes that I've talked about. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that you're going to get a thick layer of product, and like it's going to be not see-through, if that makes sense. Whereas some shadows, you can get more of a transparent base or like a see-through base, similar to like what I have on today. It's kind of sheenier, thinner material or thinner product on your eye. I hope that makes sense. If you know, you know. But either way though, I really like this palette. I love the color scheme. I love the formula. I'm really excited to try more from this brand when I find that a palette is up my alley. So far, this has been the only palette that they have released that I've been really intrigued and really wanted to pick up. But I definitely will have that brand on my radar, potentially to pick up some more in 2023. Next, we have this Violet Voss palette. I bought this a while ago. It just got lost in the sauce of my review box, so I just didn't see it. This I bought on like a triple sale. This is their Sunflower palette. I think almost every time Sephora does some form of sale, this palette is involved with it. It is a very cute 10-pan palette, and I like that for each matte you get a shimmer. I really love that for somebody who maybe isn't as familiar with color theory or just feels more comfortable just being told what to put with what. You really can do it that way. You can also kind of make your own little quad with this palette. So I really love the color scheme and like that it's a yellow and browns. I think this is a beautiful neutral palette, and once again you get a kind of thicker metallic formula here where you're going to get a nice opacity to the lids. But do know that Violet Voss is not going to be the shiniest metallics that you see in the book. Very far from that. I would say this is on par with the Give metallic formula, so it's not going to give you that independently owned sheen and shine, but it works. And if you're somebody who likes an everyday kind of effortless eye and you don't want to really attract people to your eye look, I definitely think that a Violet Voss or even a Give will work. And even you can manipulate some independently owned brand formulas as well. But yeah, there's that. Another smaller palette that I have to talk to you guys about is actually from the Ulta beauty brand, and they collaborated with Marvel for the Thor Love and Thunder movie. And so this is a quad that not a quad. This is an 8-pan that I picked up, and I'm not impressed. I really don't particularly like this palette. It works, it really does, but I don't particularly like it. I don't really like the shimmer formula. I find that this is truly more of a shimmer formula than even something that is metallic or even something that is a little bit more transparent. So I really don't like that. And the matte formula, I just feel is a thinner formula overall than something that I like. I like a nice thick matte formula that's going to be nicely opaque and blendable and and, you know, saturated, right? You really don't get that with this. I understand the market for that type of formulation, but I'm not that market. So I was quite thoroughly disappointed with this collection in general. You guys have already seen me review the face palette. I did not like that either. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to think, and it's gonna be a long time probably before I buy anything else from Ulta Beauty Brand, because I've not been impressed so far by the couple of things that I did pick up. Okay, my last smallish palette is my Batty Bean and Shroud collaboration. This is their second collaboration, and this is the Hollow Bean palette. I love this palette. I know that there was something going around, I feel like, where some people were having difficulty with this palette. I didn't have any difficulty at all. I found that all of the shadows blended beautifully, mattes and shimmers. You do get a thicker formula overall with this brand, but they've always had a thicker kind of metallic formula. You do get some thinner kind of shimmery toppers, or like more transparent shimmers or metallics, if you will. This is also a multi-chrome, in case you did not know. I really enjoy this palette. I think I had a lot of fun with it, and I will continue to have fun with it every Halloween and when I'm in the mood for some spooky eye looks. Okay, so those are all of the smaller palettes. Everything else is relatively bigger. So let's just stick with the spooky theme and talk about this baby right here. This is my Melt, what is it? The Gemini? No, the Muerte palette. So they have released in the past the Viva palette multiple times, but they had never re-released the Muerte palette. Somehow, some way, they found some stock, they released it. I grabbed it. And what I will say is this, I feel like it's just a reminder that when you lust after something and you finally pick it up, it's never worth the lusting. It really isn't. I think this is a fine quality. These shimmers, as are almost all of Melt's shimmers, are very thick. This is a thickness that I don't particularly like because I find it a little bit harder to apply. When it does come to this type of formula, I do only use my fingers because I feel like my fingers can really warm up that product and really layer it and kind of spread it out on my eye in a thinner formula, and just looks a little bit better. The mattes are beautiful though. I've never had a problem with Melt's mattes at all. It's always been the shimmers, so I am very happy that there are only 2 shimmers. But yeah, like I said, sometimes it's not always worth it to lust after these products that were limited edition and never came back, because sometimes there's a reason. This is like the second time that I've learned that in my makeup love industry time frame, and I think I'm gonna finally learn that lesson. Alrighty, my last kind of finished palette, and then we got some thicker ones, is actually from Adept Cosmetics. This is my Minka palette, and I feel like every time I talk about this palette, I say it in the name in a different way. It's the Minka palette. Minka. But either way, in this palette you see 2 mattes and everything else is shimmer. And this is definitely not my favorite palette from Adept. And I say that because when you are only going to give me 2 mattes, those mattes are crucial. They need to work. They need to be great. And this lighter kind of more lavender-ish toned matte is so white based that it comes off ashy on my skin tone. I definitely highlighted that in my review video. And this darker matte is beautiful though. They're both opaque, they're both pigmented. I can blend them both out nicely, but this one just has too much white for somebody of my complexion in that base, and so it just does not look good. I can blend them together fine, but like, come on. So either way though, of course the metallics are beautiful, and of course, in my opinion, you get some interesting textures in this one. These 2 are like a metallic with like a shimmer flake running throughout them. You also of course get that multi-chrome type formula. Then you get these thinner ones that are like the thin multi-chrome. You get the thicker kind of more cream to powder type situation. I enjoy Adept's metallics. I really do. I do. And I'm almost to the point where I have literally all of their palettes, even though I thought I would never be at that point. And I've only tried Adept this year. So that tells you something. It really does. But nonetheless, I don't really love this palette. You know, I love certain aspects of it, but if I had to rank my Adepts, which I would love to do in the future, this would definitely not reign supreme. Alrighty, next is actually a Natasha Denona. I think I featured this maybe only once on my channel, so I apologize for that, but I didn't get to actually start using it until very, very late. Anyways, this is the My Dream palette, and this is a beautiful palette. I love the depth and the range in this palette. I feel like this is the perfect tones and depth levels for somebody of a darker complexion to like tan to deep. I feel like this palette was really made for our skin tones and minds. You really don't get a lot of really light tones, whether it's the matte or the shimmer. You really get that mid-tone to deep range, and that's perfect for me. I love her cream to mattes. This is a palette that I feel like I said, the palette is made for us, the face palette not so much. You guys already saw I decluttered that with a swiftness, a very quick swiftness, because that thing did not work on me. But this eyeshadow palette, the eyeshadow palette is bang. So next, Nomad Cosmetics. Now I finally decided to go ahead and give Nomad a try again this year after being on hiatus from them for quite some time. And I must say I am happy that I did make that decision. So in this palette, you only get 3 shimmer metallics type situations and the rest are mattes. And what I will say is, even though I was concerned, I can pretty much get used out of all of these mattes. Now, would I have preferred not to specifically have this one? This is the one that like, I'll be side-eyeing her like, what is you here for? I would not recommend using that shade if you were my complexion, unless you strictly use it as a brow bone highlight. Otherwise though, pretty much every other shade works for us. I don't particularly love this metallic formula. It's more of, I would say, like a sheer shimmer formula, but it's a really good formula nonetheless. I'm happy to see that I am still, or my love for Nomad has been reinvigorated this year. I definitely think that they've changed their quality since the last time I picked them up, and I'm happy to say that. Very, very happy to say that, and I can't wait to see what they release in the upcoming years. A new brand to me this year again is actually Blend Bunny Cosmetics. I picked this palette up sometime very late in the year. This is their All Done Up palette. I was able to get it, I believe, on like 20% or maybe 25%. This is a beautiful, beautiful palette. This is what I would say is like an ultimate neutrals palette, or somebody who is a neutral lover that wants a splash of color in there. This would be the palette for you. Now, I'm not going to hold you up. This top row, absolutely no business being anywhere near me. None. But the middle, or the second down, spectacular. And this shimmer formula is very, very like that glittery formula that you get, and you can make it look opaque or you can sheer it out in the best possible way. If you have the Nomad Cosmetics Harajuku palette, think of that, or that really special formula that you have seen in, like, is it Odens Eye? Odens Eye, in like, I believe it was their original Solman palette, that bottom row that everybody went crazy about. Very, very similar formula there. Absolutely love the formula. It's really, really nice, and very, very happy to have picked this up. I know I was cautioned on picking up a couple of their other palettes. I just haven't found the time or the money to do so yet, but I do want to kind of try to find those comments again to see which ones people said to stay away from, so that I don't potentially pick that up and like kind of weirdly fall out of love with the brand. But I so far am enjoying all of the stuff that I picked up from that brand. And then the last 2 palettes are from the same brand as well, and these are from Odens Eye. Now, these are a sore topic, I feel like, in the independently owned beauty industry, because a lot of people wanted these palettes and they weren't able to get it on the first initial stock or the restock. And you know, I've tried not to feature them too much on my channel after I heard that, because I didn't want to be that person that was like pushing a product that is no longer available. I did use them in my look today, but I did just want to play with them some more. And yeah, so I probably will never do another kind of official 2 looks with each palette. I would have done it if these stayed around, but I just don't want to rub you guys' face in it. So I hope you guys understand. But regardless, let's talk about each palette. Now, I didn't know how I was going to take these palettes, but I feel like I've taken them a lot better than originally thought. So for this one, this particular palette is called the Merry Christmas palette. So you're going to get the more warmer tones. And I must say, I think this is a beautiful palette. I definitely thought there was a lot going on here when I saw it online, but when I see it in person, it really makes sense. And what I love about this palette that I don't think anybody pointed out in any of their reviews, you can go row by row and get a full look. So you can have an inner corner highlight, you can have a lid shade, you can get a crease color and a deepener up color just going by the rows. And for some people who maybe are still new to color theory or just once again like to be told what to do, this is a beautiful palette to do that. Now, am I getting, I feel, as much use as I could with this palette? No. I feel like I'm reaching honestly for the other one a little bit more, but the formulas in here are fantastic. Very, very good quality here. I haven't found a dud product in this particular palette at all. I really, really like it. And do bear in mind, I feel as though the deeper tones, specifically these reds and this black, they are pigmented. Honestly, all of these shadows are pigmented, but the other ones, they're pigmented and it shows. Originally, my eye look had a crease of green. The burgundy took over. So just take that in mind. If you do have this palette and you're struggling to get it to work for you, or in the event that you were interested in this palette, dupe it out. It's all good. Dupe it out with your collection. I'm sure your collection is big enough. The other palette that I picked up, of course, from this collection is their Christmas Eve palette. And I feel like I'm getting so much more use out of this palette, specifically, of course, because of Sage. You guys knew I was going to reach for that. I really love Flaming Time as well. Overall, I really, really love this palette. I think it's beautiful. Once again, though, do keep in mind those deeper mattes are pigmented, okay? Pigmented, so don't play yourself. Definitely keep that in mind before you really go in with it on your brush. And then also these lighter shimmers, and then in this palette as well, I find are a little bit more on the more sheerer section, whereas some of the deeper ones and the darker ones are just more opaque. I don't know if that's because of my skin tone or what's going on, but that's what I found when I was testing these palettes out. So yeah, if I counted correctly before I started this video, that was 14 palettes. So as I like to do, I like to break my palettes up into two zones, the lower half and the upper half. And then I, of course, do a full-on ranking where I rank literally palette 14 to 1. So give me a second. I'm going to get these in their respective ranking, and then I will just run through it so that you guys can know my opinions on these 14 palettes. Like I said, stay tuned for a top 10 of all palettes that I tried in 2022. I'm sure it's gonna be a killer video and I can't wait to plan it. Okay, so this was actually quite difficult because I felt like there were easy 3 that were just like your bottom half, and then everything else was solid, like solid or great. So I will tell you guys once we hit the really solid range so that you guys can know like this is still good. There were just reasons, and of course I will talk about the reasons as we go through the ranking. So yeah, let's just go ahead and dive on in, and then once we get closer to the top, of course I'm gonna stop the video so that you guys can put your guesses down below. So of course, coming in last place is what? The Ulta Beauty and Marvel palette. I was just highly disappointed. I didn't like either of the formulas presented in this palette. I just, no, like, don't be surprised if and when I film my declutter, this is just a escapade from my collection, because she just wasn't it. She wasn't it. Next is another disappointment, but for a whole nother reason. This is the Mount Muerte. I was lusting after this for so long, and then when I got it, I was just like, oh, okay, it's cute, but like, I could have kept my money. I could have put my money towards something else. So for that reason, because it was not something that I felt like I got overly amount of enjoyment from, I have gotten enjoyment, don't get me wrong, but it's not an overly big amount. We're going to go ahead and give this number 13. And then last for the bottom row is something that, once again, I just feel like it's not anything to really write home about. It's good quality, all that, but like, Did I need to spend my $9 on this? Not necessarily. Am I mad I spent it? Not necessarily. But like, I could have kept it. I could have kept it. I was just intrigued. I was curious. I haven't tried Violet Voss in a while. And at this point, I was really collecting the brownie neutral toned palettes because I hadn't found the perfect one. I feel like in this collection of palettes alone, I found pretty much all of the brownie neutral palettes. So I don't need to go down that road again. But yeah, I didn't have to spend my $9 on this one. Some of the other brownie neutrals that I have in this collection alone are better. So there's that. So those are the bottom three. Of course, the two, they're not on the bottom because of formula. They're just on the bottom because of me. Let's get into I've already lost track. Check the screen. I don't know. Number 11. Yes, number 11 is actually going to go to the Give. I don't know. Once again, good quality, like it, I really do. But if we're talking about this compared to some of these other palettes that have more intrigue, more texture variety, I can actually get use out of all of the mattes, all of the shimmers, everything. You know, this palette just doesn't touch it. I definitely am going to be putting this in my top drawer without a shadow of a doubt. If I want an everyday look, this is going to be her. This is going to be her, sis. But she just, you know, she's not intriguing. She's not interesting. So for that reason, she had to get number 11. Number 10, once again, like I said, we're in the good quality section. We really are. And this is going to Nomad Cosmetics, Hudson Valley. I really did like this palette, right? There are different textures and different undertones of these shimmers and these mattes that I really did appreciate. But in the grand scheme of things, this shimmer formula here is not my favorite. I did enjoy it. I did get use out of it. Don't get me wrong. And I will continue to, of course. But if we're comparing this texture variety to some of these other palettes, this just doesn't touch it. And for that reason, this had to go in the number 10 spot, I think. Let's hope. We're going with number 10. I don't know. I believe it's the number 9 slot now, and I'm actually giving it to the Depth Cosmetics Minka palette. And I had to put this here because this has more texture, more variety, more intrigue than the palettes down below. And I'm definitely thoroughly not disappointed, but I can't get use out of all of the shimmers, or all of the mattes. It can't win, and I can't get use out of every last shadow in this palette. So for that reason, sis is at, what did I say, number 9? I'm going with 9. Number 9. And for the last in this kind of bottom category, even though it's not even, but we're going to go with it, is this palette. And this is the Caladios Flowing Haze. I really like this palette. I like that I can get use out of all of the shimmers and the one shimmer and all the mattes. I don't particularly find that I need to, but I can. But it's not as perfect as some of the other palettes, so it was just in the middle zone, and it just so happened to fall here between this and the next palette that I'll be talking about in the next category, if that makes sense. So yeah, this is, I believe, number 8. Alrighty, so we have 7 left. Let's keep going. And in number 7, I'm actually going to go ahead and give it to the Cold Brew. Once again, this is another palette that I intend to actually put in my top drawer. But in this palette, you get more intrigue with that metallic formula. You also get an interesting more variety in these mattes. I get it, they may look the same as the Give, but this formula here is better. It's a creamier formula, a thicker formula, and it's just better. I just like this palette more, so that's why she had to get to the number 7 slot, and I intend to actually reach for this palette more so than this one. That's why she beat her out. So there's that. All right, number 6 is a newcomer to my collection, and this is from Sugar Drizzle. This is their Trick War Treat palette. I really do like this palette. I think this is a beautiful palette, but I don't love this palette as much as I love some of the others. And although I think I'm going to get some good use out of it, I don't see me getting as much use out of it as I am going to get out of some of these other palettes. So for that reason alone, it couldn't go any higher, and it didn't go any lower because I just think that I'm going to get more use out of it, even not necessarily more use than my standard palette, but it just was more intriguing. There's more variety, more texture. You get that multi-chrome and add some je ne sais quoi, you know, to this palette. So yeah, this is number six. Alrighty, number 5. Are you ready? Number 5, we have the Blend Bunny Cosmetics palette. Now, I think I'm going to get a supreme, hopefully, amount of use out of this because this is like an ultimate neutral palette. And I really have been gravitating towards neutrals lately. I really think that this shimmer section is beautiful, but this top row, I couldn't give it any higher because literally the last 4 palettes, I can use every last shadow. Not one shadow can I not use. And this, but these 3 really make up for that in my head. And that's why I didn't go any lower. So for that reason, sis is going to sit pretty at number 5. Okay, number 4. I was surprised, but when I really looked at it, this is what it came down to. And number 4 is actually going to go to the Merry Christmas palette. I really like this palette. I think the variety in textures and colors, I love that you can go row by row and get a different color scheme. I really do enjoy it. I really want to play a little bit more with this row in general, but I just don't see me getting as much use out of this as the top 3. In all reality, this palette, I just don't see a lot of use because in general, right now, I don't really gravitate towards wanting to pick this one up. The other 3, I've gravitated towards wanting to pick them up. So that's that. That's why Merry Christmas from Odens Eye is at number 4. All right, it is the time to pause this video and comment down below the top 3 that you can see me actually getting use out of course, and my favorites. Of course, the 3 that are left are Natasha Denona's My Dream palette. We have the Shroud and Baddie Bean collaboration, which is Hollow Bean. And then lastly, we have the Odens Eye Christmas Eve palette. So like I said, stop the video right now, comment down below, don't cheat. I would love to see who gets it right, who doesn't. And in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so in coming in at number 3, I'm perplexed, but here it is actually the Hollow Bean palette. Love this palette. I really do, but I don't see me getting as much use out of this palette as the other 2. I think that I'm going to get so much use out of it during these darker, sultrier months, but I find that the other 2 palettes are a little bit more kind of year-around palettes for me in the types of colors that I tend to gravitate towards anytime, all the time. So for that reason, I couldn't put this any higher, but I am so happy to have this in my collection. I actually have the first one as well, so I will definitely be playing around with both of them throughout the year, but I just don't think it's going to be as consistently as the other 2. Coming in at number 2 is my Natasha Denona. I think I'm going to get so much use out of this. I really do. But something about this still holds me back. This doesn't have as much texture variety as the Odens Eye. Now, granted, that's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because she has her creamy matte, she has her normal mattes, she has her metallics, and she has like a shimmery type formula as well. And she also has some more satiny shades. But I don't know, there's just something about the next palette, of course, that has me, but this one still has my heart. I think for me, this is one of her best palettes for my skin tone, for me personally, and I'm so excited to get even more use out of it. But of course, coming in at number 1 is going to have to be my Christmas Eve palette. I have just wanted to gravitate towards this palette and physically actually gravitated towards this palette a lot. Now, I know I said that I can get use out of all of these shades, and I actually can get use out of Ice Crystal. It is quite white based still, but it is a gray nonetheless, so most grays don't really look the best on my skin tone, but it brings some uniqueness to this color scheme, and I think it's great. This Ice Cage with the, what's the shade? the Nowhere, I think those two combination with some of these more icier tones, or even with this shiny Dreams, is a really, really pretty look. And I've really had fun playing with this particular palette. So that's why she reigns supreme today. I would love to know if you guys are surprised or how you feel about my ranking. Definitely let me know if you have a palette and you would have ranked it higher or lower than what I did. I would love to hear your comments down below. As always, if you like this video, please do go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in subscribing after watching this video, I would love it if you hit that subscribe button. And with that said, I will see you guys in my next video, which I'm sure is going to be tomorrow. Bye, guys.